So we only have 25 minutes, so I'm going to just kind of jump straight into it. Shannon Spotswood, RFG Advisory, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. So first, because this conversation is called Broadening Your Client Base, Why Inclusivity Wins, and we're going to address the elephant in the room in just a second. But I think first I would love for you to kind of do a little bit of context, stage setting. What exactly does inclusivity mean to you? What is that in the first place, as far as these advisors should know?
Well, we definitely were talking about this is a hot topic, considering everything that is in the news right now. And what I will say, particularly as it relates to our industry, is that we are in a moment in time, this is a bull market for advice, and advisors do such important, noble work. You all are on the clock 24/7. You never know when that emergency phone call is going to come in. And you're serving the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the first responders, the teachers, the widows, the professionals. You're serving America and helping to really build stability into the fabric of our country. So when we think about inclusivity as it relates to our industry, it is truly all of your clients, particularly as we recognize that we are standing on the precipice of the single greatest generational wealth transfer the world has ever seen. And that next gen who is inheriting the money is a melting pot. They are very evolved in their thoughts around money. They are very intentional about how they're approaching structuring their life, what they're looking for, what goals and success and the happiness factor and quotient around money. So I think what's so exciting for us as an industry is inclusivity is just being smart about building your business and opening yourself up to the maximum amount of opportunity to serve.
Right, so to that point, in your mind then, the thesis for this, right, for this whole conversation is truly that ignoring inclusivity is ignoring money.
That's right.
Right, saying no to money and leaving money on the table. I don't want to have a dollar figure on it, but exactly how much money do you think we could be leaving behind, right? Is this a key component to success for any advisory firm?
This is trillions of dollars, right? We're estimated to see $40 trillion transfer in the next 9 to 10 years. And you double it and then some. If you look at the totality of the generational wealth transfer, that number is closer to $90 trillion. So truly, this is table stakes for building a firm that is not only going to be relevant in serving clients today, but that is going to leave a legacy, that is going to take advantage of the opportunity to create enterprise value. So without an intentional strategy of building your mission aligned to your values and recognizing that inclusivity and that opportunity to serve multiple generations, you are going to be obsolete. You are going to get outcompeted. So this is critically important, and it's such a central cornerstone of any strategy.
And you and I were talking just yesterday about this, and you kind of were touching on what all successful firms have in common. And I was surprised by what they do have in common and what they don't have in common. So talk to me, tell the audience a little bit about that.
So here's a sad statistic. Fidelity recently came out with a study, and this is self-reported, that only 17% of advisors raise their hand and self-identify as thriving. The rest are just merely surviving. And the reason for that, I think if you start connecting the dots on the data, is twofold. Advisors are spending 80% of their time on non-revenue generating activities. So the stuff you hate and the stuff that you love and that you're exceptionally gifted at doing, deepening your client relationships and prospecting, is getting deprioritized. So I think that the high-performing firms have figured this out. They are prioritizing how they're spending their time. They're building their firms to be reflective of their values, to be inclusive of their mission statement, and everything that they do, from their client experience to how they onboard clients to how they prospect, is consistently touching back to those values, to that mission statement, and all along that value chain time is prioritized correctly. And that is a huge missing gap in the industry.
Okay, so we actually have some stats, if we can show that on the screen right now, because you talked about this sort of this wealth transfer and the next generation. And so I want to talk a little bit about who exactly that sort of next generation is going to be, and essentially why you have to think about that when at least it comes to your client base, because we have some of the numbers here.
So this is really going to kind of blow everybody's mind. When you aggregate these numbers, you'll see why we think it is so important to be thinking in a multi-generational prism as it relates to creating enterprise value in your firm. So let's start at the top with women. We've all seen this statistic. They are the first stop. This is just like, who out here looks at actuarial tables? This is just actuarial table math. So by the year 2030, women in this country will control 67% of all wealth. They are the first stop in the generational wealth transfer, and then that will subsequently pass on to their heirs in the next gen. What is so fascinating about the opportunity that is in front of all of us as it relates to intentionally serving women is that they are showing up and saying, I want to work with a financial advisor. So the majority of women say, I don't believe I can accomplish my goals without the support of a financial advisor. The majority of women are also showing up and saying, I place a high degree of trust in my financial advisor. You then combine it with the most recent McKinsey study, where if you are delivering holistic financial planning, which is what women are really seeking, help me knit my values, my passions, my life to my financial plan. Help me with holistic financial planning. 80% are willing to pay 50 basis points or more, and a full 30% are willing to pay 100 basis points or more for holistic financial planning. So women are showing up. They're going to control the majority of the assets for a short period of time as that generational wealth unfolds. They want to work with a financial planner. They're looking for what you're great at delivering, holistic life planning. They're willing to pay more for it. And then here is the little kicker that's not up there that I thought was really interesting. Why I brought my little cheat sheet. I just saw this information. So referrals, right, are the majority of the source of driving growth in your firms. Organic growth in our industry is pathetic. It's only 2 to 3%. So the majority of advisors don't spend enough time on organic growth. But the majority of organic growth is coming from referrals. So 65% of growth is coming from referrals. 88% of advisors don't actually ask for a referral, and only 4% feel that they are maximizing their referral sources. And this is the golden nugget. Women refer 5 times the amount as men. So if you are intentionally cultivating your values, it is expressed in your client experience. Your clients across the board, multi-generationally, are showing up, are feeling heard, are a part of that conversation. You're delivering on your superpower of holistic financial planning. You are setting yourself up for 5x referrals at the tip of the spear where the majority of the assets are heading. So this idea of being very thoughtful about that strategy for the next gen, being very thoughtful about that strategy for women is literally the X factor on driving organic growth in your firm, building enterprise value in your firm, and being well positioned to capitalize on this massive dislocation that is happening in our industry. The other thing that I want to just flag here is about what is happening in the industry. There are not enough of you. So in this McKinsey study that just came out about 2.5 weeks ago, they projected that in 9 years, there will be a shortage of 100 10,000 advisors. Said differently, 10,000 advisors leaving every year over the next 10 years, controlling trillions of dollars worth of assets. So it really is incumbent upon all of you to be in a position to serve more clients. And this is somewhat controversial because we've heard a lot of panel discussions that the way to build a high value practice is to limit the number of households that you serve, raise the minimum of which you are serving, and that is where your secret sauce lies in terms of how you build your team. But I'm going to offer the counterpoint on that, which is demand for financial planning and advice is increasing by 30% over the next 10 years. So if you aren't being intentional about thinking of how you're going to really rank or you're going to classify or you're going to categorize your clients into different tiers, and then designing your value proposition to serve each one of those tiers, you are not going to hold on to those assets and that generational wealth transfer. And it is infinitely in your control to be able to do so.
So really more is more, which I stole from you.
More is more. I mean, that was, as we talked about, what is inclusivity and why does inclusivity win? More is more.
So we've kind of touched on the elephant in the room, but I'll kind of sort of hit it head on, because we have heard how diversity and inclusion, and we've just talked about women, let's be very clear, because there's a lot of other communities that exist out there that have a lot of money and that are seeking financial advice, and the makeup of the United States is changing, right? So the question then is, for anyone that's out there or watches this or hears about this later, is the solution, okay, I just got to go hire more women, and that's just what I need to be looking for when I'm looking through resumes and I'm hiring more advisors, right? Because you're saying that the clients want an advisor that looks like them, or at least a practice that kind of represents what we have in this country right now. Is that what everyone's doing? Is that, you know what I mean? Because that's taboo right now, that everyone thinks that, oh, we're just hiring diversity hires and we're just hiring these inclusion hires, and they're not great at their jobs. We're just doing it just because. So how do you address that in this context?
I'm a Gen Xer, so meritocracy is like my love language. What I will say is Accenture did a study and they asked clients, what were the 3 most important things that you look for in a financial advisor? Number 1, do they share my values? Number 2, do they get me? Number 3, do I want to spend time with them outside the office? This has nothing to do with you have to be a woman to serve female clients. You have to be of a certain race or gender or age in order to be effective in building a practice that is creating a legacy, to be relevant in a generational wealth transfer environment, to be relevant to a multi-generational client experience. If anything, it is farther from the truth. And the bottom line is only 14% of financial advisors are women. If you look on the independent space, it's single digits. So that's not how we're going to go about solving this problem. And quite honestly, we don't need to do that. It is, as we've talked about, it really is sitting right there in front of you. You all got into this business because you had a calling to serve. You had a calling to serve. This is your superpower. And what I think is so powerful is that if you start to spend the time to articulate what are those values, you codify what is your mission, and that is on display. It is on display in your client meetings. It is on display during your prospecting conversations. It is on your website. It is in any of the video content. You're just coming back and reinforcing those themes about why you got into this business. What are the underlying values and mission of your firm? And that is what is going to attract the talent to your team, as well as enable you to be able to connect in a very meaningful way with clients of all walks of life, of men, women, younger, older. It's not about, I have to check a box. I have to check a diversity box on my team in order to be successful here. But here's what I will share that's an interesting little, tidbit as it relates to building your team. As an industry, we tend to have a bias towards, do you have experience? Have you done the role? And as a result, we narrow the pool of applicants that we're looking. Once you have that orientation in your firm, that you're very clear on what is your mission, you're very clear on what are the cultural attributes of success of your team, you're very clear on your values, you're able to open up that pool of candidates that you're looking to bring onto your team. And it helps you to be able to add diversity, whether it's through different industries, different experiences, as opposed to this narrow lens of have they done the job before in our industry and therefore they are qualified. This doesn't apply to everything. Obviously, we have to be licensed. You all are licensed. But there are certainly roles on your team where you can benefit from this immense amount of talent that is out there, whether it's in fintech or it's in technology or it's in marketing. All of these roles are out there and you're able to add them to your team. And here is something that is so fascinating. A high-performing team of A players, what is the commonality? What is the linkage of a high-performing team? It is not how many years of experience. It is not Ivy League education. It is not how long have we worked together. It is not have I done this job before. It is how successful am I at building a diverse team. Diversity of age, diversity of experience, diversity of where you grew up. This is a talent X factor as well as a growth X factor for your firm.
So I know that we're talking about this sort of diversity and inclusion, which is kind of twofold, right? It's not just necessarily diversity and inclusion of your team, but also of your client pool and base, right? You've already kind of mentioned the stat about, what these clients want, the holistic planning, what kind of factors they're considering when they are seeking out an advisor or a firm. So how should this change how any advisor is sort of giving that kind of advice, right? Let's say, okay, we've got the diverse team. We are now considering expanding, our client base, really looking at maybe some communities that we've perhaps overlooked, but we know they have the money. How should we talk to them differently, perhaps, than the way they were talking to clients before?
We all need to go through a jargon cleanse. We love our jargon. We all speak it fluently. I'm an old hedge fund girl. There's nothing I love more than talking about alpha. Our clients have absolutely no idea, especially our female and next gen clients. We have a program called Stronger Money, which is a prospecting program for advisors to intentionally build their referral lead streams, serving women as well as next-gen clients. And what we have found through Stronger Money and through the events there, that the clients, this is part of holistic planning. They want to talk about their life. They want to talk about their life, and they are hiring you and trusting you. The majority of them are showing up and saying, I trust my advisor very much. Like, that is a 60% number. They know that you are the expert in the room as it relates to portfolio diversification. They know you are the expert in the room of tying the way that their investments are managed to accomplish the long-term goals that they set out. But then they want to have conversations about how not to die richly, but to live richly. And that is just, and this is why this is so infinitely approachable and is solid gold sitting within your firm. You don't have to radically overhaul your team. You don't have to go out there and find the unicorn advisor. I mean, every single advisor that we talk to says, I would love to add a female advisor to my team. Every single one of them. It's going to be very, very challenging to do it, and you don't need it in order to be successful. So just having that intentionality of shifting, and quite honestly, one of the things we say about this is get comfortable being uncomfortable. Talk about your feelings. Share your why. Be vulnerable. You got into this business for a reason. Either you were raised by a single mother, or your family struggled with money, or you had a calling to have a disproportionately positive impact by serving families and helping them build multi-generational legacies. Every single one of you has your why, and the thread in that why is a high degree of vulnerability that you need to become more comfortable sharing as a part of your mission statement, sharing in social media, media, as you're filming videos that you're sending out to your clients, that degree of vulnerability, of talking about something that you never thought you would be willing to talk about with your clients, is actually exactly what your female and your next gen clients want to hear from you. They don't want you to just show up and walk and talk like a finance bro. They don't want you to show up and walk and talk like a financial advisor. They want you to show up and say, I love to ski. I'm super passionate about skiing, and I've planned this charitable event that supports, athletes that have disabilities, like whatever it is. Whatever it is that really energizes you and knits your mission back to your passion, that's what you need to be talking about during your client meetings. That's what you need to be communicating to the next gen. And that is what is going to convert that referral, as well as help you retain those assets in the course of that next gen and that generational wealth transfer.
So we only have like 3.5 minutes left. So I'm going to hit you with like 2 final questions. How can tech, this is future proof, so I have to ask, how can tech really be utilized to help any advisors in this mission?
Absolutely essential to operationalize and professionalize your business. And that means, this kind of goes back to that get comfortable being uncomfortable. 2 things that means. Number 1, that special process that you have that takes hours to prepare for a client meeting, is challenging for your team to replicate, is burning a significant amount of time, needs to be reevaluated. There's a way for you to deliver that value, but in a more systematized, more streamlined fashion that will enable you to be able to serve more families. So that is an absolute must. You've got to operationalize and professionalize, standardize your workflows. This whole 80% of time being spent on non-revenue generating activities applies to advisors. It also applies to our team. That is about ready to get upended. If you haven't, we're big fans and users of Zox. If you haven't started to explore AI tools and how that they can drive that client experience and drive efficiency into your business, you need to be looking at that. I had a podcast with Doug Fritz from F2 a couple weeks ago we filmed, and I asked him, what do you think the adoption rate will be of AI tools in our industry? And he said, hands down, this will be the fastest adoption of any technology we have ever seen, and the majority of advisors will be leveraging AI by the end of the year. So if this isn't on your radar, it needs to be on your radar. This is a perfect place to do it. So leveraging technology to prioritize your time, to deepen that client relationship, to deliver on your value proposition is absolutely, without question, a must. You have to do it.
So we've already highlighted, why now is the time that we have to start doing this. And just to kind of wrap it up for everyone, because I know, the stats are right there. We are essentially seeing a huge transfer of wealth to a next generation. And we're also seeing it at the same time as a lot of advisors. So your competition is leaving the field.
Yep.
This is a lot of dollars that's available for a lot of you guys to snap up. So after this conference is over, Wednesday evening, Thursday, maybe next Monday, what should everyone that has sort of heard this talk go and do?
If you haven't already defined your mission, vision, and values and codified it, like it means something. You're not a trusted fiduciary. Like it actually means something. It's reflective of who you are and your why you serve clients. That's number 1. So codifying your values, your mission, your vision for the firm. Number 2, once you've done that, apply that lens over it. How can this feel more personal? How can I express vulnerability to my female clients, to my next gen clients? How can I do that very intentionally in those meetings, in my marketing, in my prospecting? And then kind of the most obvious thing that, when I share that statistic, that the majority of growth is coming from referrals, that clients want to refer you, they trust you, and yet we're not asking for it. We're not doing anything intentional to nurture those referrals. It is sitting there for you to take advantage of, and it will be such a critical part of driving that organic growth to double digits and building enterprise value and the legacy of your firm.
All right. And
On the buzzer.
I know, right?
Thank
right?
you all so
Buzzer
much.
beater. Thank you so much, Shannon Spotswood, RFG Advisory.